My name is Larissa. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a scrap cap with a pouch for hair and bias tape. I'm wearing this scrap cap right now. I developed the sewing pattern for this scrap cap myself. First, I print my sewing pattern, then I cut it out and tape it. To get your own copy of my sewing pattern, click the link above the video on the right. After you iron your fabric, fold it for the side part. I mark it because I need to know the wrong side. Use the ruler to ensure that your fold is aligned. Put your sewing pattern so it's aligned with the fold. Now trace all around your side part. Before you cut your fabric, use a couple of pins to pin layers together so they don't shift when you are cutting out your side part. For the top part, you need only one layer of fabric. Use your ruler to make sure that the grid on the sewing pattern is aligned with the edge of the fabric. Now trace all around it. Align the pouch part to the top part and trace around it. Then take the elastic tape guide, align it and trace around it also. Now it's time to cut your top part out. Use the sewing pattern to mark the places where pouch begins. Now we need to do some ironing before we start sewing. Start with the top part. Fold down 1/8 of an inch, about 1 inch up and down from the mark where the pouch starts. Then put pins to mark those places. On the bottom of the top part, fold down and iron about 1/4 of an inch. Next is elastic tape guide. Iron down seam allowance on all 4 sides of the elastic tape guide. I use bias tape about 1 inch wide, 37 inches of it. Straight from the package, it's not really aligned properly, not the way I want it. So I take an iron and align the edges of my bias tape. Ends of the bias tape will become ties for my scrap cap. I need to prepare them for sewing. I unfold it on one side, then make a fold about 1/4 inch thick and iron it down. Cut excess fabric and interlock those folds so that my tie is nice and clean. Now I iron it down so it stays that way. I do the same for the second end. I unfold the edge, then iron down about 1/4 of an inch, cut off excess fabric and interlock the folds. Our next step is reinforcing the fold on the sides of the top part with zigzag stitch. Reinforce the fold with zigzag stitch on the other side of the top part also. To form a pouch, fold the top part right side in, leave seam allowance and align with pins. Start making straight stitch at the corner of the pouch. Go all the way to the edge of the pouch, then stop, turn your work around, remove your pins, change your settings to the zigzag and stitch back using zigzag stitch to the corner of the pouch. If there is excess fabric, over your zigzag stitch. Cut it off. Next, iron out your seam, flip your work over, and align the elastic tape guide with the pin on the left and the edge of the pouch on the right. Make sure that you left seam allowance on both sides, on the left and on the right. Secure your elastic tape guide with pins. In the next step, we'll attach the elastic tape guide to the top part. Start stitching using zigzag stitch. Go all the way to the other side until you reach the short side. Then you will stop, turn your fabric, change your setting to the straight stitch, and make straight stitch outside of the short end. Once you turn your fabric around, you change to the zigzag stitch and start stitching all the way going to the other side. Once you reach the short side, you stop again, turn your fabric, then change to straight stitch and stitch outside of the short end to keep it open. Then you tie a knot and hide the ends of the thread between layers of fabric. Short ends of your elastic tape guide should be open. Align the short ends of the elastic tape guide together and pin them. Now you're ready to make a straight stitch to close the other side of the pouch. When you reach the edge of the pouch, stop, turn your work around, switch your settings to zigzag, and continue stitching back to the corner. In the next step, make a knot and cut the excess thread off. Cut off excess fabric above zigzag stitch. Both ends of your elastic tape guide should be open. Your top is ready. Our next step is to prepare the side part for sewing. We need to iron down about 1/8 of an inch on both sides of the side part, about 2 inches long. Then use zigzag stitch to reinforce those folds. To find the center of the side part, fold it in two and mark that spot with a pin. Fold the top part in two, find the center, and mark it with a pin. Next, align both centers face to face and start pinning them together, moving to the left until you reach the pouch. That's where the last pin goes. Then repeat the same action on the right side. Pin the parts together and the last pin goes in where the pouch starts. Top and side part are pinned together now. It's time to start sewing. Put your needle down where the pouch starts and use straight stitch to go all the way around to the other side of the pouch. Once you reach that point, you will need to stop sewing and then turn your work around. Make a straight stitch until you reach the open end, change your settings to zigzag, and continue stitching back to the other side of the pouch. Add zigzag reinforcement, switch back to straight stitch, and finish stitching at the edge of the pouch. Then make a knot and hide your ends of the thread between the layers of fabric. If you have excess fabric around your zigzag stitch, cut it off like I did. In the next step, iron out the seam. Find center of the side part and middle of the bias tape and mark those with pins. Now align them together and start pinning side part to the bias tape. When you reach the end of the side part, shift it toward the fold in the bias tape and pin it so as to secure it to make sure it's hidden inside the bias tape when you start stitching. Finish pinning side part to the bias tape, and when you reach the other end of the side part, also shift it toward the fold in the bias tape. Now it's all nice and clean and you can start stitching. Start stitching your bias tape at the corner of the tie, helping your sewing machine move the fabric if necessary. Make sure that the needle goes through the fabric on both sides, and pay attention to the place where the side part starts. Go all the way down to the other side, then reach the corner, turn around, and finish stitching your scrap cap. I hide the leftover thread between layers of fabric. All my seams look nice and clean. To finish the pouch, you need 6 inches of elastic tape and 2 safety pins. Attach them to each end of elastic tape, then find the opening in the elastic tape guide and thread the elastic tape through the elastic tape guide. When you find the opening, pull out both ends and remove safety pins. After that, sew the ends of the elastic tape together. Now it's safe to distribute the fabric over elastic tape and turn the pouch right side out. Your scrap cap is ready.